Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards, fire up your fingers, and come join the conversation. Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are listening to The Right of the People, where we do use the first to defend the second. It is Friday, January 29th, 2021. Before we get started, I'd like to point out that if you can't watch this live, I understand. That's cool. That's awesome. That's great. And if you're watching it in replay, sweet. If you don't want to be streaming it on YouTube, you can download it in podcast format via Stitcher. And Google Podcasts, and there's a couple more. I don't generally promote it, but I think I need to start doing that. So yeah, if you're one of those people that like to listen to stuff while you do things, go check that out on Stitcher. Would like to welcome my esteemed panel. We have the one, the only, the irascible yet lovable Squibload. How you doing, sir?
Hey.
Next up, we have Roll Call 219. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here, brother. Then we have the lovely Gunpowder Beauty. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, no problem. You are always welcome to show up here anytime you want. And last but most certainly not least, we have the Tactical Pickle himself, Calaveras 32 Special.
Hey, Budget. Thanks for the invite.
No problem, man. Out there in YouTube's on the live chat, we have Blacktip Studio showing up first, although he said he was second. Gunpowder Beauty was in the house out there, and Gabriel was wondering what will the special mystery technical difficulty be for tonight. He's going to pee his pants. He can't wait. Well, I hope you pee your pants and wait forever, because I'm tired of these technical diddlies. So, yeah. Rage Viral is in the house. Guitar Man Pete. Mystic Guns. Hello, hello, Mystic. Gun-loving Grandpa's out there. Hi, Buck. Let's see, who else? The Poor Conservative and Bo Weevil struggling in. Ghost Tactical materializes out there. The Hub 1964 is here. Midnight Range TM appears in a cloud of pancake smoke. Seven Wonders is here. Hello, hello, hello to everybody who is out there. If you are out there and you haven't sounded off, say something in the chat. That way I know you're here and I can say hi. Remember, folks, this is a two-way conversation. It is not just me and my panel talking to you. We're talking with you. So please, shout out in the chat. Let us know what you think. If you're watching it in replay on YouTube, say something in the comments below. All I ask is that we try to keep things PG-13-ish. I may fumble once in a while. Or, let me rephrase that. I probably will fumble once in a while. But, you know, we try to keep things civilized around here, or at least as civilized as I'm capable of being. That being said, feel free to disagree. That's fine. I do not wish to live in an echo chamber. Just, you know, be civil. Two Live Moos showing up. How are ya? So, all right. As you guys can tell by the title and the wonderful, clever thumbnail, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee has submitted, it's been a while, it took a minute for the text to become available on the Congress website. House Resolution 127, let me just go ahead and go to it. H.R. 127, the Sabika Sheikh Firearm Registration Act. I'm going to go ahead and just read the text because I don't know how many people have actually done that or whether any /bill/117-Congress/House-bill/127/text. So yeah, there you go. H.R. 127, to provide for the licensing of firearm and ammunition possession and the registration of firearms and to prohibit the possession of certain ammunition. This is in the House of Representatives. Ms. Jackson Lee introduced the following bill, which was referred to Committee on the Judiciary on January 4th. A bill to provide for the licensing of firearm and ammunition possession and the registration of firearms, and to prohibit the possession of certain ammunition, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. This act may be cited as the Sabika Sheikh Firearms Licensing Registration Act. Section 2, licensing of firearm and ammunition possession, registration of firearms. Firearm licensing and registration system. In general, Chapter 44 of Title 18 United States Code is amended by adding the following. Section 932, licensing of firearm and ammunition possession, registration of firearms. A, in general, the Attorney General, through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, shall establish a system for licensing the possession of firearms or ammunition in the United States and for the registration with the Bureau of each firearm present in the United States. Firearm registration system. Required information. Under the firearm registration system, the owner of a firearm shall transmit to the Bureau A, the make, model, and serial number of the firearm, the identity of the owner of the firearm, the date the firearm was acquired by the owner, and where the firearm is or will be stored, and a notice specifying the identity of any person to whom and any period of time during which the firearm will be loaned to the person. 2. Deadline for supplying information. The transmission required by paragraph 1 shall be made, A, in the case of a firearm acquired before the effective date of this section, within 3 months after the effective date of this section, or B, in the case of a firearm acquired on or after the effective date, on the date the owner acquires the firearm. 3. Database. A. In general, the Attorney General shall establish and maintain a database of all firearms registered pursuant to this subsection. B. Access. The Attorney General shall make the contents of the database accessible to all members of the public, all federal, state, and local law enforcement authorities, all branches of the United States Armed Forces, and all state and local governments as defined by the Bureau. C. Licensing system. Requirements. A. General license. Except as otherwise provided in the subsection, the Attorney General shall issue an individual a license to possess a firearm and ammunition if the individual I. has attained 21 years of age, or 1. 2. After applying for the license, 1. Undergoes a criminal background check conducted by the National Instant Criminal Background Check System established under Section 103 of the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, and the check does not indicate the possession of a firearm by the individual would violate subsection 922 or state law. 2. Undergoes a psychological evaluation conducted in accordance with paragraph 2, and the evaluation does not indicate that the individual is psychologically unsuited to possess a firearm. Gee, I wonder what constitutes psychologically unsuitable. Conservative? 3. Successfully completes a training course certified by the Attorney General in the use, safety, and storage of firearms that includes at least 24 hours of training and demonstrates that on issuance of the license, the individual will have in effect an insurance policy issued under subsection D. So just so far, this bill will require you to register all your firearms, when you got them, who you're loaning them to, where you're storing them. It'll make all that information available not only to law enforcement agencies, but to the public, i.e. criminals and thieves who might want to steal your shit. And it'll force you to undergo psychological testing, get insurance, and take a mandatory 24 hours of training. And we ain't even halfway through it. B. Antique firearm display license. The Attorney General shall issue to an individual a license to display an antique firearm in a residence of the individual if that individual is the holder of a license issued under subparagraph A, supplies proof that the individual owns an antique firearm, describes the manner in which the firearm will be displayed in accordance with regulations prescribed by the Attorney General, and certifies that the firearm will be so displayed, and demonstrates that the individual has provided for storage of the firearm in a safe or facility approved by the Attorney General for the storage of firearms. Military-style weapon license. The Attorney General shall issue to an individual a license to own and possess a military-style weapon if the individual is the holder of a license issued under subparagraph A. In other words, you first have to have the general license. after applying for a license under this subparagraph, successfully completes a training course certified by the Attorney General in the use, safety, and storage of the weapon that includes at least 24 hours of training and live fire training, so they make you undergo another 24 hours of training on top of the 24 hours of training you had to go through to get the general license. Psychological evaluation for a second time. Psychological evaluation is conducted in accordance with this paragraph if the evaluation is conducted in compliance with such standards as shall be established by the Attorney General. So that's not vague or anything. The standards could be whatever the hell he wants, or she, or they, or whatever pronoun du jour. B, the evaluation is conducted by a licensed psychologist approved by the Attorney General, which could be anything. C, as deemed necessary by the licensed psychologist involved, the evaluation included a psychological evaluation of other members of the household in which the individual resides. So not only you have to go through a psychological evaluation to get your general license, you'd have to go through another psychological evaluation to get your military-style weapon license, and everybody else in your house has to go through a psychological evaluation too. Let's see, where was I? Oh, and as part of the psychological evaluation, the licensed psychologist interviewed any spouse of the individual, any former spouse of the individual, because, you know, we all know that ex-spouses get along with everybody just wonderful, won't say anything bad ever, just to kind of, you know, undercut somebody. Never. And at least 2 other persons who are members of the family of or an associate of the individual to further determine the state of the mental, emotional, and relational stability of the individual in relation to firearms. 3, denial of license. Required. The Attorney General shall deny such a license to an individual if the individual is prohibited by federal law from possessing a firearm, or the individual has been hospitalized with a mental illness, disturbance, or diagnosis, including depression, homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation, attempted suicide, or addiction to a controlled substance with the meaning of the Controlled Substances Act, or alcohol, or a brain disease, including dementia or Alzheimer's. I guess Joe can't have any guns. He's got to get rid of his shotgun. Or on account of conduct that endangers self or others. Conduct that endangers self or others. What exactly is that? Is that, you know, posting something they don't like on social media? Don't know. Is that belonging to Oath Keepers? Don't know. B, authorized. The Attorney General may deny such a license to an individual if the psychological evaluation referred to in paragraph 2 indicates that the individual has chronic mental illness or disturbance or brain disease referred to in subparagraph A to I. 2, is addicted to a controlled substance, has attempted to commit suicide, or a prior psychological treatment or evaluation of the individual indicated that the individual engaged in conduct that posed a danger to self or others. Suspension of license. In general, a license issued under this subsection to an individual who is under indictment for a crime or punishable by imprisonment for a term exceeding 1 year is hereby suspended. Authorized for lack of firearm insurance. The Attorney General may suspend a license issued under this subsection to an individual who has violated Section 922 DD in the most recent 12-month period. Revocation of license. A license issued under the subsection to an individual who is or becomes prohibited by federal or state law from possessing a firearm is hereby revoked. Such an individual shall immediately return the license and surrender all firearms, ammunition owned or possessed by the individual to the Attorney General. Expiration of license. A license issued to an individual under this subsection shall expire in the case of a license that has been in effect for less than 5 years, 1 year after issuance or renewal as the case may be, or in the case of a license that has been in effect for at least 5 years, 3 years after the most recent license is renewed. So you have to get this thing renewed every year for the first 3 years. No, actually for the first 5 years, and then every 3 years thereafter. Renewal. The Attorney General shall renew a license issued to an individual under the subsection if the individual requests the renewal by the end of a 60-day period that begins with the date the license expires. In the 3-year period ending with the date the renewal is requested, has met the requirement of paragraph 1A to 2, and has successfully completed a training course certified by the Attorney General in the use, safety, and storage of firearms that includes at least 8 hours of training. So in order to renew this, you have to not only get your your 24 hours to get your general license, and if you have a military-style weapon, then you have to get your additional 24 hours of training. Now, within a year, you have to do another 8 hours of training. And have insurance, don't forget that, and pass all your psychological evaluations. Based on the requirement of paragraph 2A, and in the case of a license issued under paragraph 1C, in the 2-year period ending with the date the renewal is requested, has successfully completed a training course that includes 8 hours of training. Yeah. Firearm insurance. In general, the Attorney General shall issue to any person who has applied for a license pursuant to subsection C and has paid to the Attorney General the fees specified in paragraph 2 of this subsection, a policy that insures the person against liability for losses and damages resulting from the use of any firearm by the person during a 1-year period that begins with the date the policy is issued. Fee. Check this out. The fee specified in this paragraph is $800. $800 for this license that you have to renew every year for the first 5 years. And if you have military-style weapons, you have to get 2 of. So that's $1,600 a year, plus your psychological evaluations, which aren't going to be free, for the first 5 years. Then, they magnanimously said you only have to renew it every 3 years. But wait, folks, there's more. Military-style weapon defined. Plus, you have to get insurance. Let me remember that, too. Section 921A of such title is amended by inserting after paragraph 29 the following. The term military-style weapon means any of the firearms or copies or duplicates of the firearms in any caliber known as Norinco, Mitchell, and Polytechnologies, Automat Kalashnikov, all models. Action Arms Israeli Military Industries, Uzi and Galil, Beretta AR-70, Colt AR-15, Fabrique Nationale FN FAL, FN LAR, and FNC, SWD M10, M11, M11-9, and M12, Steyr AUG, Intratec, Tech 9, Tech 9D, Tech DC 9, and Tech 22, and revolving cylinder shotguns such as or similar to the Street Sweeper and Striker 12. The semi-automatic rifle that has an ability to accept a detachable magazine and has at least 2 of either a folding or telescoping stock, a pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the weapon, a bayonet mount, a flash suppressor or threaded barrel designed to accommodate a flash suppressor, and a grenade launcher, because, grenade launchers are like everywhere. Semi-automatic pistol that has an ability to accept a detachable magazine and has at least 2 of an ammunition magazine that attaches to the pistol outside of the pistol grip, a threaded barrel capable of accepting a barrel extender, flash suppressor, forward hand grip, or silencer, a shroud that is attached to or partially encircles the barrel that permits the shooter to hold the firearm with a non-trigger hand without being burned, because, a freaking safety device is so horrible. Again, military-style weapon, right? Manufactured weight of 50 ounces or more when the pistol is unloaded, and semi-automatic version of an automatic firearm, and a semi-automatic shotgun that has at least 2. A folding or telescoping stock, a pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the weapon, a fixed magazine capable in excess of 5 rounds, because, any shotgun of 6 rounds or over is just absolutely devastatingly deadly and horrible, and it'll make you do bad things. An ability to accept a detachable magazine. Deadline for establishment. Within 1 year after the date of the enactment of this act, the Attorney General shall prescribe final regulations to implement the amendments made by this subsection. Prohibition. Section 922 of such title is amended by adding at the end the following. It shall be unlawful for a person to possess a firearm or ammunition unless the person is carrying a valid license issued under 932C1, and 2A, in the case of a firearm owned by the person, the firearm is registered to the person. In the case of a firearm owned by another person, the firearm is so registered to such another person, and such other person has notified the Attorney General that the firearm has been loaned to the person, and the possession is during the loan period specified in the notice. It shall be unlawful for a person to transfer a firearm or ammunition to a person who is not licensed under Section 932C1. It shall be unlawful for a person to sell or give a firearm or ammunition to another person unless that person has notified the Attorney General of the sale or gift. It shall be unlawful for a person to loan a firearm or ammunition to another person unless the person has notified the Attorney General of the loan, including identity of such other person and the period for which the loan is made, It shall be unlawful for a person holding a valid license issued under 932C1 to transfer a firearm to an individual who has not attained 18 years of age. So in other words, you can't loan your kid a firearm to go hunting with. Unless, well, no, you can't loan your kid a firearm to go hunting with, or for any other purpose, to target shoot. A person who possesses a firearm or whom the license is issued under 932C1 shall have in effect an insurance policy issued under Section 932. 924A of such title is amended by adding at the end the following: whoever knowingly violates Section 922AA shall be fined not less than $75,000 and not more than $150,000, imprisoned for not less than 15 years and not more than 25 years, or both. Whoever knowingly violates Section 922BB1 shall be fined not less than $50,000 and not more than $75,000, imprisoned for not less than 10 years and not more than 15 years, or both. Whoever knowingly violates Section 922BB2 shall be fined not less than $30,000 and not more than $50,000, imprisoned not less than 5 years and not more than 10 years, or both. Whoever knowingly violates Section 922BB3 shall be fined not less than $5,000 and not more than $10,000. Whoever knowingly violates Section 922BB4 shall be fined not less than $75,000 and not more than $100,000, and imprisoned not less than 15 years and not more than 25 years, or both, except that if the transferee of the firearm possesses or uses the firearm during or in relation to a crime, in unintentional shooting, or suicide, the transferor shall be fined not less than $100,000 and not more than $150,000, imprisoned not less than 25 years and not more than 40 years, or both. Whoever knowingly violates Section 922CC shall be fined not less than $50,000 and not more than $100,000, imprisoned for not less than 10 years and not more than 20 years, or both. Conforming amendments. Elimination of prohibition on establishment centralized firearm registration system. Section 926A of such title is amended by striking the second sentence. Applicability to governmental and military firearms and ammunition. Section 925A of such title was amended in each paragraphs 1 and 2 by inserting "and except for Section 932" after the second comma. Effective date. The amendments made by this subsection shall take effect on the date final regulations are prescribed under Section A4. Section 3. Prohibition of possession of certain ammunition. In general, Section 922 of Title 18 United States Code, as amended by Section 2 of this Act, is amended by adding at the end the following: it shall be unlawful for any person to possess ammunition that is .50 caliber or greater. It shall be unlawful for any person to possess a large capacity ammunition feeding device. Subparagraph A shall not apply to the manufacturer for or possession by the United States or a department or agency of the United States or a state or department, agency, or political subdivision of a state, or the possession by a law enforcement officer employed by such an entity for purposes of law enforcement, whether on or off duty. Possession by an employee or contractor of a license under Title I of the Atomic Energy Act of 1954 on-site for purposes of establishing and maintaining an on-site physical protection system and security organization required by federal law, or off-site for purposes of licensee authorized training or transportation of nuclear materials. The manufacturer, possession by a licensed manufacturer or licensed importer for the purposes of testing or experimentation authorized by the Attorney General, or the manufacturer for or possession by an organization that provides firearm training that is registered with the Attorney General, or the possession by an individual to whom such an organization is providing firearm training during the location of the training. Large capacity ammunition feeding device is defined. Section 921A of such title, as amended by Section 1 of this Act, is amended by inserting the paragraph 30 after the following. 31. The term large capacity ammunition feeding device means a magazine, belt, drum, feed strip, or similar device that has a capacity of, or that can be readily restored or converted to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition, but does not include an attached tubular device designed to accept and capable of operating only with .22 caliber rimfire ammunition. Oh, how generous. My Marlin Model 60 is safe. Penalties. Section 924A of such title, as amended by Section 2 of this Act, is amended by adding at the end the following: whoever knowingly violates Section 922DD1 shall be fined not less than $50,000 and not more than $100,000, imprisoned for not less than 10 years and not more than 20 years, or both. Whoever knowingly violates Section 922DD2 shall be fined not less than $10,000 and not more than $25,000, imprisoned not less than a year and not more than 5 years, or both. So there's the entirety of the text of this steaming, rancid, wretched, disgusting, maggot-infested dung pile of a bill. And yes, folks, I am absolutely holding back. So please, discuss.
So I'm just curious, which one of the politicians are going to sit there and take the mental evaluation first?
Oh, well, they don't have to, because none of this applies to governmental people.
Well, and that's where none of them would pass anyhow, and they know it.
As I take it from the famous video, Sheila, listen, stop it. This lady does this every 6 months. Every time something happens, this lady's just a crackpot. Am I saying pay attention to it? Give it a look. Am I saying worry about it? No one signed on to this. Every time she's put this almost same legislation forward, no one signed on to it. It's unconstitutional. It'll get fought in the courts. It'll be a big mess. She's just doing it for show to keep a grasp on the power that she has. She's an absolutely weirdo of the government, and there's tons of them in the government. So what I would keep an eye on, and all the jabber that you just, which I bless your heart, I wouldn't even gave her the time of day to read that. What I would look at is look over that bill and pick out certain criteria. This is what they did with 5087. When 5087 was implemented, there was a safe storage law. That ended up getting picked out of that bill of poop that they put on there. I think they would pick certain things out of these long, stupid bills that they propose. That's what I would look at. I would look at stuff that would probably seem meaningful to the leftist gun grabbers agenda, and keep an eye on that. Everything else in that bill is unconstitutional, would never pass, and the Supreme Court would not pass that. There is no way, unless you want people to do things that is outrageously crazy, if this stuff would pass. But I would look at it, look at what would be passed, possibly, that would be picked out of that bill like they did it. Again, they did it with when I went to the Gun Rights Policy Conference. They showed this big, horrid bill, almost identical of what you just read, except they had safe storage laws, person-to-person transfers. You had to do background checks at a place. All that stuff was implemented in Washington and Oregon. All that stuff. I would look at this bill, see what's kind of, it could, and then go from there. But this lady, stop it. Just stop.
Does anyone else want to weigh in?
That's where I understand where he's coming from, where that's where ignore the really crazy stuff and focus on the less crazy because it might be able to get by. Unfortunately, the way things are going, and if I know this is, kind of teasing a topic that I know we're going to come up with later, but that's where if there is a judicial reform committee created later on, it strengthens the possibility that something as crazy as this could be passed if we let the community, sleep through it.
He's not saying disregard it. This is the same old stuff. Everything Budget said, that this exact same bill has come up before. Parts of this have come up in other bills. Some of the things he was talking about, it's like, damn, I've heard the same stuff for 20 years. So they're doing exactly what we said they would do. Pull it right out of the file cabinet and throw it up there. So from that standpoint, I understand what Roe's saying. And some of the things that are in there that are just outrageous are part of what keeps these from getting passed. However, he didn't say don't lose track of what's going on. And I think it's still a good idea for us to contact our representatives, those that will actually listen, and let them know that we don't support this.
No, I'm saying that's awesome, dude. Go ahead. That's great. That's what the clapping was.
Yeah, okay. And to continue to support our gun rights organizations on this. Ro was saying to stay diligent, and he wasn't saying to be complacent, but this is the same regurgitated crap.
Now, and you're right, it is. All of this stuff has come before. What makes it kind of dangerous this time, though, are some key factors that didn't apply in the past. Number one thing that always has applied is the constitutionality of it doesn't matter. They don't give a shit. All gun laws are infringements and are therefore unconstitutional. Yet we still have them and have to go by them. The second, as far as the courts not allowing it to stand, well, historically that's not necessarily been something that we could count on. I think we can all agree on this. We have all, I think everybody here on the panel has complained about this before. Particularly with, and yes, we are going to talk about this next, President Snippy is establishing a commission on Supreme Court reform. One thing we have to pay attention to, why we have to pay attention to this dung heap of a bill right now, and be alert for exactly as Roe and Squibb said, them trying to pick pieces parts and inserting it into other legislation. Because right now we have a 50-50 split in the Senate with a tiebreaker from Vice President Harris. I had to struggle not to say something horrible there. But anyhow, Vice President Harris would break the tie. Now, Mitch McConnell has backed down from demanding and fighting for a power-sharing agreement based upon a couple senators saying that they will not vote to kill legislative filibuster and that they will not vote to stack the courts. That all depends on those Democrat senators keeping their word. Can we trust that?
Well, Democrat senators keeping their words and the rhinos not flipping.
Exactly. Can we trust that? I don't know. I would love to believe so, but yeah. So those are some things we have to consider. That's why we have to be vigilant on this. Not just this bill in and of itself, but as Rose said, they've done this before. They threw all this crap against the wall. It didn't stick, but they took some parts here and there and the other, some nuggets of corn and kernels of corn and nuggets of peanuts and whatever, and put it in other places, right? So we have to watch that. Let me go out to the chat and see what's going on out there.
Historically, putting this much crap, even half of this in a bill, has gotten it shot down. So I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I believe, Ro, I'm not trying to speak for you, but this is what I'm inferring based on my experience, dealing with gun control for a while, is that stuff that is this complicated kind of is self-destructive. Yeah. But if we don't stay in contact with our elected officials, if we don't support our gun rights organizations, then stuff like this will eventually get passed.
Yep. Defense Dad out there says, I doubt this chick could pass a psychological evaluation herself. Yeah, no kidding. Seven Wonders was wondering who wrote and sponsored this bill. Sounds too reasonable for Pelosi. It's Sheila Jackson Lee, which the poor conservative pointed out. Let's see. Seven Wonders says, speaking of psych evals, I learned today that the fences are still up in D.C. to keep Joe from wandering off and getting lost. Well, yeah, definitely. Seven Wonders is like, yeah, well, all of that will definitely keep criminals from obtaining guns, especially the part where they're letting the entire public have access to the database so they can go around and look and see who has guns and where they store them in their homes. Yeah, that's just a stellar idea there.
Open to the public, you're essentially creating a shopping list for anyone who wants to do a B&E.
Mm-hmm. The Hub 1964 says this is unconstitutional and unenforceable. Typical D.C. politicians wasting time on BS. Knife Collector says the courts, like politicians, have no authority over our rights. They can't take what the people don't give. Those people willing to give up rights have the right to complain when they are have no right to complain when they are in chains, I think is what he's saying. Ohio Wolverine says you guys always overreact. No one's trying to take your guns. We just got rid of a president that was the one trying to trample our rights. LOL. I was worried there for a second, dude. Lockjaw says, I say contest them all, each and every one. Don't sleep on not a one of these garbage bills, no matter how ridiculous they are. Exactly. Seven Wonders says, I will never say those titles when referring to Kamala and Lion Joe. I hear you, but even though I don't respect the people in the office, I have to respect the office. I did it with Obama, and I'll do it with Sniffy, and I still have to find an appropriate yet not vulgar nickname for Ms. Harris. Ohio Wolverine says, keep an eye on Joe Manchin from West Virginia. He plays his pro-gun constituents. He's one of the two that I'm talking about. He is one of the two upon whose word we have to rely that they won't kill the legislative filibuster and or vote to stack the courts. Gabrielle Cedillo says, I'm a resident of SoCal and I'm already appalled by my state's laws, and this is absolutely absurd that my fellow Americans will have to go through what I go through and then some to practice our 2A. I agree, and I think Pickle there will agree too.
Absolutely.
A lot of the laws that the rest of us have to put up with at some point come out of that place.
Started there.
It's not just gun laws. I mean, I can tell you, working in automotive, there's a lot of crap we put on cars that costs money, that doesn't do anything, that costs a lot to fix, that you can all blame on California. If you can't get gas out of your gas can that you just bought, you can blame California.
By the way,
there's an excessive number of warning labels on every product that you own, you can blame California.
By the way, you can buy actual real gas can spouts and kits to retrofit them to the way it used to be, the ones that work.
Those are for watering cans. They just happen to fit.
Yeah, you're right. Cans. You're right. I'm sorry.
That's why I have...
Maybe maybe it'll be Vice President knee pads. That's it. President Sniffy and Vice President knee pads.
That's where I have, talking about a lot of the laws, the ridiculous ones have started here in California. That's why I have said for years, California is a cancer, and the advice that so many people have given to Californians for so long about if you don't like it, just move, doesn't help, because if it's not fought here, it does spread, and this is proof of that.
Yeah, I'd rather fight a war somewhere else than fight it in my backyard. And the same thing applies to this.
I'll just agree to disagree with you on that.
Fair enough.
Ohio Wolverine says, California is the reason my little 22 LR pistol has 3 safeties and a magazine disconnect. I know, right? Next up is this piece from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. This is important, folks. Pay attention to this. OCC puts hold on fair access rules from January 28, 2021. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency today announced it has paused publication of its rule to ensure large banks provide all customers fair access to their services. The agency proposed the rule in November 2020 to codify more than a decade of OCC guidance stating that banks should conduct risk assessments of individual customers rather than make broad-based decisions affecting whole categories or classes of customers when providing access to services, capital, and credit. Pausing publication of the rule in the Federal Register will allow the next confirmed comptroller of the currency to review the final rule and the public comments the OCC received as part of an orderly transition. The OCC's long-standing supervisory guidance stating that banks should avoid termination of broad categories of customers without assessing individual customer risk remains in effect. So, what they're saying is they are withholding final determination on their rule that says that a bank cannot deny access to funds, to credit card processing, to business, to entire industries. I wonder what this is aimed at. Could it be that suddenly Smith & Wesson will find themselves unable to get that loan that they need to start up a new production line? Could it be that your mom and pop gun store won't be able to get that financing to buy their next batch of inventory? Could it be that they won't be able to get their credit cards processed? Because, none of that's happened before, right?
Budget.
What?
Not getting credit card orders processed would probably be the biggest thing they should be concerned about. They don't need a financial institution. It's called investors.
Yeah.
Just make sure they're not hedge fund investors.
But even that credit card processing thing is that could kill, particularly if, as there is a push, we move to a digital currency and eliminate cash altogether. Then they're hosed if nobody will process credit cards or debit cards or whatever they end up calling the digital currency. Something to think about. I mean, this is another thing to watch, because remember, what was it, Operation Choke Point that they did? That cut off these services to firearms-related companies and started to choke them out. They did this under the Obama administration, and it stopped when President Trump when he got inaugurated and came into office. Now it's coming back. And I suspect it's going to come back with a vengeance. You guys think this is something to watch?
If they don't want to process credit cards for any firearms related purchases, they're shooting themselves in the foot, because the amount of money that they make off those transactions, it isn't worth it to them. So if they want to practice bad business, that's their right. Stupid business. I've never had anything that I bought firearms related with a credit card denied or anything else like that ever. So I've never personally seen it. I'm not saying it's impossible to do, but you're throwing away money. So whatever.
Next up is this piece from Politico. And this addresses how we're talking about these egregious, horrible laws not passing constitutional muster and will be thrown out by the court, right? Well, maybe. Depends on what the court looks like. This is from, again, the Politico, from when was it published? It was from 1/27/21. Biden starts staffing a commission on Supreme Court reform. The Biden administration is moving forward with the creation of a bipartisan, quote-unquote, commission to study reforms to the Supreme Court and the federal judiciary. The commission will be housed under the purview of the White House counsel's office and filled out with the behind-the-scenes help of the Biden campaign's lawyer, Bob Bauer, who will co-chair the commission. Its special mandate is still being decided. But in a signal that the commission is indeed moving ahead, some members have already been selected, according to multiple people familiar with the discussions. Among those who will be on the commission are Christina Rodriguez, a professor at Yale Law School and a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Obama Department of Justice, who will join Bauer as co-chair. Caroline Fredrickson, the former president of the American Constitution Society, and Jack Goldsmith, a Harvard Law School professor and former Assistant Attorney General in the Bush Department of Justice, that certainly doesn't make him a conservative, will also serve on the commission, those familiar with discussions said. Fredrickson has hinted that she is intellectually supportive of ideas like court expansion. In 2019, she said in an interview with Eric Lesh, the executive director of the LGBT Bar Association and Foundation of Greater New York, I often point out to people who aren't lawyers that the Supreme Court is not defined as a 9-person body in the Constitution, and it has changed size many times. Rodriguez's opinion on court reforms are less clear. Goldsmith's selection, meanwhile, is likely to be the one to frustrate progressives. A senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, Goldsmith did not support Trump and is a friend and co-author of Bauer, but he was a vocal advocate of Brett Kavanaugh's appointment to the High Court, an appointment that sparked Democratic advocacy for expanding the number of Supreme Court seats. He will also be an influential figure within the Supreme Court building, Goldsmith wrote in 2018 about Kavanaugh in a Time article titled, Brett Kavanaugh Will Write the Course of the Supreme Court. He is a brilliant analyst with a deep scholarly and practical knowledge of the law. His legal opinions are unusually accessible. He is a magnanimous soul. Bauer, who is not planning to go into the administration full-time, is himself a proponent of term limits for federal judges. He has been helping with the creation of the commission, and according to a person familiar with the deliberations, initially proposed the idea of forming a commission to study the issue of court reform. The president remains committed to an expert study of the role and debate over reform of the court and will have more to say in the coming weeks, a White House official said in a statement. The recruitment of members is still ongoing, but a source familiar with the discussion expects between 9 and 15 members total to be appointed to the commission. Rodriguez and Goldsmith did not respond to a request for comment, and Fredrickson declined to comment. The idea for a commission came together amid the push by Republican senators to confirm Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court in the weeks before the November election. Under intense pressure to consider reforms to the Supreme Court's composition, including court expansion, Biden performed a classic Washington, D.C. punt. He announced in October that if he was elected, he would form such a commission to study structural changes. But Biden also conceded he is not a fan of court packing. Doesn't mean he won't do it. The last thing we need to do is turn the Supreme Court into just a political football. Whoever has the most votes gets whatever they want, Biden said in a 60 Minutes interview in October. Presidents come and go. Supreme Court justices stay for generations. Progressive groups pushing for court expansion responded with skepticism to Biden's announcement at the time, and they've remained skeptical to this day. Commissions are often places where ideas go to die, and there is no time on the clock to reform the court, said Aaron Belkin, the director of Take Back the Court, a progressive group advocating for adding seats to the Supreme Court. The entire agenda of what needs to get done is in jeopardy thanks to stolen federal courts. You know, stolen by the results of the will of the people in an election. But I digress. We know, he added, that court expansion is the only strategy to allow the administration to solve the problems facing the country. In other words, to let them run roughshod over the Constitution and wipe their asses with it. An administration official said the commission is part of a broader court review and reform effort, part of which will focus on lower courts. Progressives' push to expand the Supreme Court was re-energized after Democrats won both Georgia Senate runoff races in January, giving them control of the White House and Congress for the first time since 2010. But any major structural reform would still be a heavy lift, as several Democratic senators have signaled their opposition to such measures. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Monday he was waiting for Biden's commission to decide a path forward on reforms to the Supreme Court. President Biden has put together this commission to come up with the report in 180 days, he said in an MSNBC interview this week. We're going to see what the commission says and go from there. So, what if the commission says, yeah, let's go ahead, we should stack the courts. I'm sorry, expand the courts. What then? Despite that 2 Democrat senators have said they would not vote for it. Would they stick to their guns and vote the so-called principle that they have? Or will they toe the party line? What do you guys think?
If they don't toe the party line, you know what? Almost guarantee their next time they're up for election, they're not going to get the party's help that they've relied on for years. So you can handle it. So chance they're going to toe the line.
Wolverine
I'm gonna-
says he was declined a few years ago while trying to buy a firearm, had to go to the ATM to get the cash, then close the Bank of America account. Armament Axis says Biden will pack the SCOTUS.
There's an easy way to get around this, and it's in the next 2 years, you vote Democrats out of office. That's how you got to do it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Republicans or Democrats. I'm libertarian / constitutionalist, but if you start taking seats away from these people in the House and Senate, there's no way they're going to be able to pass this stuff. Joe Biden can sign as many stupid pieces of paper that he forgets that he's signing as he wants. It's not going to deter the American people one bit. We're going to stand up to this guy. He's got limited power. Our power sits at our state levels. If we get rid of these people that talk about this, that talk about changing the Supreme Court, we get rid of those people and we put people in there that's going to abide by the Constitution to a certain extent. And, we constantly fight back that way. He can't do it all. It's got to run through the House and it's got to run through the Senate. That's why these runoffs were so important. That's what makes me so mad. All these big gun tubers can run around and say the sky is falling, sell their crappy products and do all this. But I didn't see one of them running around in Georgia, knocking on doors, giving people rides to the polls or anything like that. And then when this stuff happens, what? They're going to cry foul? Folks, get active. Get off the couch.
Biggest name I know of doing that was Pincus.
Yeah, I mean, no one thought it was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. I knew this was going to happen. What people aren't understanding is this is the Obama administration 2.0. Everybody that are in these positions have been either in the Obama administration or been some way hooked to the Clintons. This lady that goes out there and talks to the press, she's been a national security spokesperson before 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And she's done the same loopy stuff sitting on the podium for that as she's doing now. They're constantly putting the same people in place. I made a video about this, about the crack epidemic. Guess who was behind that? Your Schumers, your Bidens, all the same people. We get these people out of office, this all stops. It stops to a certain extent, and make sure you vet your candidates before you put them in this spot. These are the same people doing this over and over again. Where were those people from? The Obama administration. And for this committee, where was this other guy from? He was from the Bush administration. It's the same people. It's time to get rid of these people and make sure they go quietly into the sunset on the horse. It's so frustrating when people complain about this stuff, but yet the same people show up time and time again. It's the same actors. It's time to get these people out of office. It's time for people to get active. I don't know what else to say, but one more thing to throw on top of this. He's already said he wasn't in favor of it. There's a lot of people, even the giver herself, said she didn't think that was a viable option at one point during her campaign. Both of these people have said it. Now, if they do it, they're already screwing themselves on jobs, in the economy, on the cocoa, all this stuff. I think this is a far-fetched way off.
Here's the thing, though. Sniffy and knee pads have nothing to do with it. Nothing. It's the legislators that have everything to do with it. Whether they decide they want to pass a law to increase the size of the Supreme Court, particularly if they kill the legislative filibuster. Schumer said he's waiting to see what the outcome of the commission is. If the commission says, yeah, sure, go ahead and do it, do you think Chucky Schumer would hesitate? I don't. Particularly if, and here's another thing, that if there actually becomes a movement to do this, we need to fight it tooth and nail, not because, we're jerks and they don't deserve a vote, but it'll be horrible for the Second Amendment, is making the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico states. Because if they send legislators to Washington, they will be anti-gun. So just FYI, we need to watch that stuff too.
But isn't it in the Constitution that D.C. cannot become a state?
Again,
Isn't it
this
supposed to be
Constitution thing, you think that matters to them, roll call?
Well, see, this is the thing. If you take these people out that are making these crazy assertions and legislation, and the people that are putting this stuff on the table, we don't have to worry about this. Unfortunately, in places like where Calaveras is, and then you have Washington, and then you have these blue states, especially the East Coast. You have to convince these people one way or another that this cannot happen. You have to look at everything. Well, you think this is bad? Well, just wait when they start counting illegal aliens, and then they start
Gonna
doing
happen.
it by population count, and then they start giving other people representatives.
Oh, didn't
live in this country to send them for electoral votes.
Didn't Sniffy sign an executive order that would allow counting of illegals for representation purposes and redistricting? I think he did. If not, I think he's planning to.
Yeah, he's planning to do it. I think he's. But see, the executive orders can only go so far. You know what I'm saying?
Again, to people who give a shit about constitutionality, which they don't.
Okay, if we have no constitution, then we have nothing. So why are we even wasting our breath? On the other hand, there's still people out there that are ready to get their pitchforks and their Mosin Nagants and go down there and show them. And they're going to be the ones. They're going to be the ones that cause us to all pay the price. So
No, we're not there yet, but
we're not there yet, but there's plenty of people that want to go there, and they're the ones that are going to ruin it for everybody. But if we really don't have any constitution anymore, like I'm still trying to sort out how we're ever going to have an honest election ever again, right? I don't know. I'm still thinking it over, trying to. So if everything is, well, they don't care, well, they don't care, well, they don't care, why are we talking about it?
yeah,
It's because they want you to forget about it, Squib. They want you to forget about this stuff. This is their plan. Their plan, the Democrats' plan has always been division. But you see what happened when Schumi started talking about the filibuster. You actually had some Democrats kind of say, look, you're going too far. Let's work on other things that concern the country. These are Democrats saying this, which is surprising because I think a lot of them are loon bags. But, I don't want to put my faith in them because pressure is pressure enough, and, power is absolute. And when the powers to be kind of squeeze these people, I don't see them, not giving in. I think they would. But even seeing that little glimpse, okay, I'll take that. But I hope you hold yourself to it when it comes down to a vote, a bill, or some kind of piece of legislation that transpires to this stuff. Again, vet your candidates. If somebody's coming out there telling you the world, you better go and vet that candidate before you stick them in that place. Look how many rhinos we've seen. Look how many people that have said, well, I'm not going to do this, and they go off and do it anyway. I mean, you got to really vet these people. And again, stop electing the same people.
yeah, we have to. I think we need to talk about it because we need to keep pressure on, because that's what we can do. We need to keep the pressure on them and let them know that we know what they're doing, because some might care. Maybe enough will care that they can stop those that don't. I don't know. mean, that's realistically, that's all that we can do at this point. But we have to watch this not just at the federal level, but also at the state and local level as well. This is a piece from the Virginia Mercury from January 27th. Virginia Democrats' new gun proposals include background checks at shooting ranges, ban on ghost guns. Just like last year, the Virginia General Assembly's 2021 session began with a show of force from gun rights supporters in downtown Richmond. And just like last year, they'll have full control. And they're still looking to fix up what they see as weak spots in the law after taking power from pro-gun Republicans in the 2019 elections. Many top gun control priorities, like expanded background checks, a red flag law, and a one handgun a month rule, were approved last year. That's meant the new round of gun legislation has been somewhat lower profile, but there are several significant bills working their way through the two chambers. They include background checks at shooting ranges. Last summer, a young man went to the Green Top shooting range in Hanover County, rented a gun, and used it to end his life. 5 days later, another man did the same thing. Their families are now working with Senator Cray Deeds, Democrat, Bath, who has made mental health and suicide prevention a top priority after tragedy struck his own family, to pass a law requiring background checks before anyone would be handed a gun at a shooting range. At a committee hearing, Deeds said both men had mental health issues. Research on suicides, he said, suggests it's often carefully planned, and a background check could be an obstacle that might have changed the outcome. Anything you do to interrupt that plan may end up saving that person's life. The idea has technical limitations. Federal law doesn't require shooting ranges to conduct background checks for gun rentals, so range operators wouldn't have access to the same federal database used for gun sales. But supporters of the bill say the Virginia State Police background check system can be used instead, though the agency would likely require some additional funding to handle the increased workload. The state police estimate the bill would mean 200 additional background checks per day. Opponents of the proposal argue it's unworkable, saying it would create an onerous new process for shooting ranges that could discourage gun buyers from seeking hands-on safety training. DJ Spiker, Virginia director for the National Rifle Association's Institute for Legislative Action, said range suicides are exceptionally rare. It's best left to ranges and the Virginia State Police to come up with in-house policies to regulate this, Spiker said. That approach wasn't enough for Bradley Carroll, the father of one of the men who died by suicide at the Hanover gun range. The opposition will tell you that they acknowledge the issue but offer no solutions, he said. The bill passed the Senate Judiciary Committee 10-4-1 and was referred to the Finance Committee for a closer look at its fiscal implications. Gun ban at the state capitol grounds. The House has taken up a bill that would ban guns and stun weapons on the grounds of the Capitol and surrounding streets, a proposal that would codify state house rules and temporary gun bans that have been enacted in response to armed protesters. The ban would apply inside the Capitol building, within Capitol Square, and on directly adjacent streets and sidewalks legislatures frequently use. The bill's initial hearing, Delegate Mark Levine, Democrat Alexandria, its patron, said it would prevent future occurrences of armed extremist groups demonstrating near the Capitol. You know, us. Those groups are free to challenge the General Assembly's decisions, Levine said, but they shouldn't be allowed to do it with weapons. What they don't have a right to do is to try to intimidate us into voting the way they want using guns, Levine said. It is not a proper use of guns. The pro-gun Virginia Citizens Defense League has held armed rallies at the Capitol for years, an annual event often attended by Republican politicians. But the two that have been held since Democrats took control have drawn a different crowd. More than 20,000 people attended the rally in early 2020, many of them with military-style gear and weaponry. This year's event was much smaller due to the COVID-19 pandemic and lack of permits, but it still attracted several gun-toting fringe groups. Opponents contend the bill is overbroad and unnecessary. There hasn't been any violence in the area to justify this, said VCDL President Phil Van Cleve. The bill also covers state buildings beyond the Capitol complex, a more permanent continuation of gun bans Governor Ralph Northam and former Governor Terry McAuliffe enacted through executive orders. A similar bill has been filed in the Senate, but it would not extend the ban to the streets and sidewalks around the Capitol. Gun bans at polling places. Firearms are already banned in schools and some other facilities used as polling places, but it depends on what type of building it is and what the gun policies of the building owner are. A bill already approved by the House would ban guns within 40 feet of all polling places, with exceptions for police and armed security officers and anyone who lives next to a polling place and has a gun on their own property. We want people to be able to be free to vote without intimidation, said Levine, the bill's sponsor. A Republican activist from Hopewell made headlines in 2018 for staging an armed protest outside the local registrar's office where absentee voting was taking place. Amid the conspiratorial atmosphere following the 2020 presidential election, 2 Virginia men were arrested and charged with weapons offenses after driving to a Philadelphia vote counting center. The ban would also apply at electoral board meetings dealing with election results or recounts. Republican lawmakers have pointed out that the bill makes no exception for concealed carry. Guns others can't see, argued Delegate Les Adams, Republican Rockbridge, aren't a tool of voter intimidation, which is already illegal. That justification is the only justification, Adams said. Group violence prevention. Several Republican-sponsored gun bills, many of them exempting concealed carry permit holders from new restrictions, have already gone down in defeat. One that has not is a GOP House Minority Leader Todd Gilbert's bill dealing with an all-too-common form of gun violence that rarely draws the same type of outrage as mass shootings. Gilbert, R. Shenandoah, has filed legislation to bolster group violence intervention programs or community-based efforts to deter shootings involving gangs or other groups most at risk of violence. Young men of color in urban areas are 11 times more likely to die by violence and firearms than young white men who don't live in these areas, said Gilbert. These young men are dying senselessly and needlessly, and they don't have to. Gilbert's bill would create a Group Violence Intervention Board and a Division of Group Violence Intervention within the Department of Criminal Justice Services. The board would be tasked with applying for federal grants to fund Virginia programs similar to Boston's Operation Ceasefire, an initiative that dramatically reduced youth homicides in that city by providing resources to people trying to transition out of gang life and warning others that further acts of violence would be harshly punished. David M. Kennedy, co-founder of the National Network for Safe Communities at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York and one of the creators of Operation Ceasefire, spoke in support of Gilbert's bill, saying it attempted to solve an appalling problem. It's one of the most grievous demonstrations of racial iniquity that we have in our democracy, Kennedy said. The fact that decade in and decade out and year out, we take it for granted that young men of color will die and die and die and die, and we do not do anything about it. A similar bill failed in 2019, but several Democrats said they were largely supportive of Gilbert's measure this year as it passed a subcommittee by a 5-1 vote with 2 abstentions. They said they want to work to modify the bill to require more community involvement on the 6-person board that, as proposed, is weighted toward law enforcement. Delegate Joshua Cole, Democrat Stafford, noted that President Joe Biden was ultimately criticized for his role in passing the 1994 crime bill, even though at the time it was supported by a lot of pastors and black grandmothers who wanted to see something done about crime in their neighborhoods, which FBI statistics show the 1994 assault weapons ban did squat nothing for. But I digress. We have to be very, very clean and clear when we create this and we do this, Cole said. We want it to protect communities, but we don't want it to turn into something different down the road that can hurt us. Delegate Sam Rasool, Democrat Roanoke, was the only Democrat who opposed the bill outright in the subcommittee. He said he'd like to see a more holistic approach that takes into account larger problems like poverty and underfunding of schools. This bill is built upon a premise that we as an authoritarian state with law enforcement first will be the beginning of this conversation, said Rasool, who is seeking the Democratic nomination for lieutenant governor. Ghost guns. With Virginia's laws on gun purchases getting tougher, some policymakers are concerned about the rise of homemade guns. A bill advancing in the House would ban untraceable ghost guns or home-assembled firearms and plastic firearms made with 3D printers. There's really no reason not to serialize your gun unless you're trying to evade background checks, Delegate Marcus Simon, Democrat, Fairfax, the bill's patron, said during a subcommittee hearing. Or maybe because it's none of the government's effing business what I have, but I digress. Opponents said the bill unfairly criminalizes hobbyists who enjoy do-it-yourself gun projects. You're treading in an area that's extremely technical, said Van Cleve. Closing the quote-unquote Charleston loophole. When the shooter who massacred 9 people in 2015 at a black church in Charleston, South Carolina, tried to buy a handgun, a drug offense should have prevented the sale from going through, according to the FBI. But because gun sales can proceed if a background check hasn't been completed after 3 days, the purchase went through. Gun control advocates have dubbed that the Charleston loophole, saying background checks should be allowed to take longer if it means authorities will make more thorough decisions about whether the buyer is barred from having a gun. Legislation pending in the House would increase the maximum window for state police background checks from 3 business days to 5 business days, because, those 2 days might make a tremendous difference, allowing more time for a check to go through instead of the buyer getting a gun by default. Gun rights groups contend the Charleston case was more about authorities botching Roof's paperwork and wasn't a simple question of how much time was spent on his case. Opponents have argued longer background checks would overburden the system and prevent people from being able to buy guns in a timely manner. So there you have it, folks. A ton of new gun legislation in Virginia. Watch for some of that stuff to filter out to the rest of us. So what is next? What is next? Let me look at my topics.
Well, I just want to add in there, working behind a gun counter for the last almost 4 years, I don't think that's either the business's fault or anything like that. I think that's the people that works at Nick's. That's their fault. I don't know how many times that I see people that either never get a response or their response is way over the course of time. I mean, there's some places like mine that don't do the Brady Act, that don't release a gun after 3 days. And that's probably one of the reasons why my place didn't do that. That just shouldn't fall on the place of business. That falls on the FBI and the ATF or whoever checks that paperwork. I don't understand how these people, they either don't know how 4473s are and how you fill them out, or they just don't know the process on the way to get it. So it's stupid. It's stupid, and I don't understand it. Only for the reason is to strip citizens of their constitutional right. That's all I see it. For the gun range stuff, that's tragic. It's tragic. There's a gun range here in my area where you can't shoot on their range unless you have a permit. That's just the way they do it. I know a lot of people don't like that, but that's just the way it is. So, I think it's at the range's discretion. A lot of these bills that come out of Virginia are just so grossly not even researched and just thrown out there for just the one purpose is to restrict their populace. I never understood Virginia, how everybody says, oh, it's great. No, it's not. These people have been constantly doing this for the last 4 or 5 years, doing some dumb legislation, and it took, how many people to show up there, and it still passes? Again, vote these people out of office. Start getting motivated. I don't know what to say about these bills, man. They're stupid.
Well, I think Virginia is a case of, as it is in so many other places, the larger metropolitan areas are outvoting the rural areas who make up the majority of the landmass of the state. It's the population centers ruling over the peasantry. That's what I think is happening there. Next up, this piece from FoxNews.com. Kenosha protester accused of firing into air before Kyle Rittenhouse shooting slapped with new arson charge. Joshua Zeminski was also seen in videos with another man eventually fatally shot by Rittenhouse during demonstrations on August 25th. A Wisconsin man previously accused of firing a shot into the air moments before then 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse allegedly gunned down 3 protesters in Kenosha, killing 2 of them over the summer, was slapped with a new felony arson charge Tuesday after prosecutors say he also lit a dumpster on fire during violent demonstrations earlier that night. Joshua Zeminski, 35, of Racine, was charged Tuesday with 1 count of arson, a felony, as well as 2 misdemeanor offenses of disorderly conduct with a dangerous weapon and obstructing an officer, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported. The latest criminal complaint alleges he and his wife, 30-year-old Kelly Zeminski, attempted to block police trying to disperse a crowd of protesters gathered on Sheridan Road south of a government center on August 25, 2019. Several chaotic demonstrations ensued in the days after Jacob Blake, who is black, was shot in the back 7 times by a white Kenosha police officer. Man, see, got a race bait. Videos recorded by Joshua Zeminski's wife and recovered from her cell phone showed Joshua Zeminski tossing a lit match into a dumpster at a gas station near 56th Street around 11:15 p.m., prosecutors said. He then called for others in the crowd to help him pour more flammable liquids into the dumpster before pushing the container into the southbound lanes of Sheridan Road as police vehicles moved toward him, Madison.com reported, citing the criminal complaint. Another video showed Joshua Zeminski near an overturned trailer set ablaze at the 5800 block of Sheridan Road, manipulating the fire with his right foot, prosecutors said. His bond was set at $1,000. Footage also showed his wife adding what appeared to be lighter fluid and other flammable material into the dumpster, the Southern Illinoisan reported. She was previously charged in December 2019 with several misdemeanors, including disorderly conduct, resisting an officer, and a curfew violation, and is scheduled to appear during a pretrial conference for that case Friday, according to the Journal-Sentinel. During a court hearing Tuesday, Kenosha prosecutors also dropped a separate charge of disorderly conduct with a dangerous weapon initially filed against Joshua Zeminski in October. Previously, prosecutors alleged in a separate criminal complaint that he fired a handgun into the air during street demonstrations near the intersection of Sheridan Road and 60th Street on August 25th. Joshua Zeminski's shot allegedly rang out moments before Rittenhouse, who was reportedly nearby at the time, opened fire during the protest, killing Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber and wounding Gage Grosskreutz. Before he was killed, Rosenbaum was seen on several other videos from that evening, spending time with both Joshua and Kelly Zeminski, including right before Rosenbaum began chasing Rittenhouse, the Journal-Sentinel reported. Rittenhouse faces multiple charges, including intentional homicide. He has argued he was protecting businesses and fired in self-defense. Conservatives have rallied around him, generating enough money to make his $2 million cash bail. His supporters previously argued that the weapons-related charge filed against Joshua Zeminski in October proved that he fired the first shot before Rittenhouse used his weapon. So, this dirtbag is catching an arson case for starting a dumpster fire, which he deserves. Because dumpster fires are bad, okay? Shouldn't start dumpster fires. Speaking of starting dumpster fires, there's a guy who used to work for Kimber who started a dumpster fire, metaphorically speaking. And Kimber says, yeah, no, he ain't got nothing to do with us. It's from guns.com. Kimber disavows anti-constitutional carry former exec. From January 28th. Alabama-based gunmaker Kimber on Wednesday made clear that the opinions expressed by one of its former employees on a Montana permitless carry bill are not theirs. Kimber is a proud supporter of our constitutional rights to keep and bear arms, said Leslie Edelman, CEO and owner of Kimber, in a statement. We support organizations that defend these rights, and we are committed to providing the people of this great nation with the finest premium firearms available. The statement came after Ryan Busey maybe, who identified himself in a January 25th opinion piece for the Missoulian as helping build the gun company Kimber while serving as its vice president, made the case against Montana House Bill 102, a measure that would expand concealed carry rights in the state. The author of this article, Ryan Busey, is no longer an employee of Kimber and has not worked for Kimber since August of 2020, stressed the company after videos by popular 2A advocates lit up social media on the subject. His statements and opinions expressed regarding the opposition of Montana House Bill 102 are not authorized by or attributable to Kimber. Kimber, long a New York-based company, made headlines last year by pulling stumps and moving from the Empire State to the more gun-friendly climate of Troy, Alabama. As for HB 102, it passed the Montana Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday. The state is one of at least 8 who are weighing such legislation this year. So, yeah. Kimber said, yeah, no, what he said, yeah, that's nothing to do with us. And I don't blame him, because what he said was, well, pretty damn dumb.
There's something else in that you brought up that proves the point.
Go ahead.
They moved from New York to Alabama. This is what I've said on, I can't remember if I've said it on this show, but I know I've said it on other shows. You can move out of these states that oppress people's constitutional rights and go give your tax money to another state. Sure, you've got to move. Sure, you've got to retrain, or you've got to train a new workforce if people don't move with you. Oh, and by the way, if your company moves, you can move too. If they're willing to retain you, you get a tax write-off on that move. Oh, but I got to sell my house. I got to this. I got to that. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but people do it all the time. For all these I can't move people. Okay, these companies can move. In the automotive industry, we'll put a plant down in nowhere, Alabama for the taxes. The workforce down there does not work like we do up here. They have no idea how to build a car. They really don't. It's a pain in the butt trying to get these people to make cars like we do in Michigan. And the infrastructure isn't there like we have here as far as, all the places you can buy parts for your machines and the skilled trades and the roads and the trains and the planes and the everything, right? But the taxes are so low, it's enough to get a company to go, I think I'm going to build a factory down there. So Kimber moved. A bunch of these other companies can move. Smith & Wesson needs to move. I mean, everybody who's in one of these states need to say, no, I'm not giving you another damn penny of my tax money. And they need to make concessions to allow their employees to move with them.
Yep. It's pretty damn stupid to stay. Speaking of pretty damn stupid.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
Yep, folks, now it's time to decide who the dumbest dingbat there is. And first up, strange that we just talked about this article about Kimber disavowing Mr. Busey, or however the hell you say his name, because guess what? Here's this piece from the Missoulian. Being pro-gun also means being pro-responsibility. We must oppose HB 102. By Ryan Busey, January 25th, 2021. First off, I got to do a stupid survey to read the article. But anyhow, like so many Montanans, I grew up with a rifle in one hand and a shotgun in the other. I converted my love of shooting into a 25-year career in the firearms industry. I helped build an iconic international gun company. I sold millions of guns. I've won awards, been a finalist for the Firearms Industry Person of the Year, which is the industry's highest honor. It's an award that has also been bestowed on firearms royalty like Charlton Heston and Bill Ruger. I've got a long history with guns, but I never forgot the lessons that my father taught me. Be safe, be responsible. Guns can take a life in an instant. As a boy, I learned the rules in hunter safety class, and I followed the mandated safety procedures before every single gun industry event. House Bill 102 does away with this kind of common sense. If enacted, people without any permit could carry concealed guns into bars and college campuses across our state. Of course, the sponsors of the bill mandate that permits are required around their offices in Helena, but not for the rest of us. Safety is important, but I guess it's only important for them. I know firsthand that we need to minimize the likelihood of violence, not increase it. This spring, my young son was attacked in Kalispell by an armed Second Amendment patriots at a local peaceful demonstration. They used their guns to frighten and intimidate. I stepped in to defend my son, and it slowly diffused, but the situation could have gone very wrong. I shudder to think what might have happened if alcohol or the emotion of late-night college parties would have been involved. I'm among the many Montanans who own and appreciate guns, but I also know that citizens of our state understand we must be advocates for responsibility. Montana boasts of a wonderful common sense, and deep down all of us know that protecting our rights also means avoiding extremist policies that only increase the likelihood of bloodshed. Montana House Bill 102 will not make us safer. It is not a pro-gun bill. It's an anti-responsibility bill. I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. I own plenty of guns. I shoot with my boys every chance I get, and I believe in the right to protect my family. But I also believe in responsibility, safety, training, and common sense. So I believe in the Second Amendment, but this bill is the equivalent of waving flames over open gasoline. That sort of action every ranch kid like me knows is reckless. Permitless concealed carry, guns on college campuses and in bars, these are policies that make gun tragedy more likely, and there is nothing patriotic about that. There's nothing common sense about what you just read. How many places have permitless concealed carry and do just fine and dandy? There is not blood running in the streets. So, yeah, Ryan Busey, you are candidate number 1 for Moron of the Week.
I think that the use of the F-bomb for that is appropriate, if not warranted.
Did I say it?
I know, but I kept saying it in my head. I mean, it's that whole, nowhere in your incoherent rambling did you make any sense. Everybody's now dumber for having read this article.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Next up, this piece from Breitbart. Nancy Pelosi, House members who carry guns for self-defense are the enemy within. This is from January 28th. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, California, referred to House members who carry guns for self-defense as the enemy within on Thursday. Breitbart's Joe Pollack reported Pelosi's statement, wherein she was given a chance to put forward her stance on House members who want to be armed for self-defense. Pollack tweeted, Speaker Pelosi referred to certain members of Congress as the enemy within. When asked what she meant, she said, there are members who want to carry guns, like Representative Boebert, who carries legally. So if you exercise your Second Amendment rights after a deadly riot, you are an enemy. Lauren Boebert, Republican, Colorado, is the co-chair of the House of Representatives' Second Amendment Caucus and has been outspoken about her commitment to carry a gun in D.C. In a December 23, 2020 exclusive interview with Breitbart News, Boebert said, I am my security. She added, Washington, D.C., like most Democrat-run cities, has a violent crime problem, so I certainly need a way to protect myself, and I will be carrying each and every day. Following the January 6, 2021 Capitol riots, Breitbart News reported that Representative Thomas Massey, Republican, Kentucky, the other co-chair of the Second Amendment Caucus, talked about how comforting it was to be armed when the rioters struck. Massey said, the next member who argues congressmen shouldn't be allowed to carry firearms at work needs to be laughed out of the Capitol. So there you are. Because you wish to be responsible for your own safety and recognize that you are in fact responsible for your own safety, you're the enemy within. So, Nancy Pelosi, you're contestant number 2 on Moron of the Week. So, folks, that's it. That's the only 2 I got for you. Pretty 50-50 shot here. We got Ryan Busey or Nan Nan. Squib, who do you pick?
Well, I kind of wanted to vote for the Juicy Busey, but I think I'm going to vote for Nancy.
Fancy Nancy.
Fancy Nancy. Yep. She can get her hair done when nobody else can.
That's right. Roll call, Juicy Busey or Fancy Nancy?
Nancy.
Pickle.
That's really tough, but I'm going to have to go with Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi. Well, you folks who've watched the show before know what this means. It is your chance to tell me who you decide is the Moron of the Week. Juicy Busey or Fancy Nancy? Let me know.
So is Pelosi going to become the Joe Biden of 2021?
Maybe.
Where the honorable mention, no matter what?
Maybe. Midnight Range says Pelosi. Ohio Wolverine says Fancy Nancy. Gunpowder Beauty, who had to drop out, says Pelosi. Guy that comments says, I don't know what the hell he's saying. Polono is greater than Pelosi? I'm assuming that's a vote for Pelosi. Ozzy Osbourne barks at Nancy. The Hub 1964 says Nancy. Said, well, he says it's the only time he'll vote for Nancy.
The only time I would vote for.
Got 23 out there watching. Tell me what you think. We got what? So far 9 votes for Pelosi, none for Busey. Yep, Guy votes for Nancy. 7 says POS Losi. 10 for Pelosi. None for Busey. I think I'm going to go ahead and call this one, folks. Early polls indicate that it is a landslide victory for Fancy Nancy Pelosi. You are the moron of the week. And you pretty much deserve it, right?
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of Moron of the Week.
All right, folks. Those of you who are longtime listeners of the show know what is about to come up. As soon as I can get everything situated for it, right? We've done Moron of the Week. Now it is time for Roll Call 219's favorite segment, Self-Defense Shoutouts. Yay! Self-Defense Shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the fact that the bad guy may or may not have won the room temperature challenge by taking a dirt nap. It's where I'm reveling in the fact that the good guy had a guy for making him. First up is this piece from ABC13.com from January 22nd. Sugarland woman shoots home invasion suspect. Sugarland, Texas, KTRK. A burglary suspect was shot Friday as he tried to break into a Sugarland home, police said.
We know you've got your hands full at home.
Yes, well, I don't care about your advertising.
So Instacart is here to help make grocery shopping a little easier.
No, stop. Stop. I don't care about Instacart. Unless they pay me to care about them, in which case I'll do all the commercials they want. Anyhow, Sugarland, Texas, KTRK. A burglary suspect was shot Friday as he tried to break into his Sugarland home, police said. It happened around 5 a.m. in the 200 block of Shadowwood Drive in the Sugar Mill neighborhood. A woman was inside the home with her 8-year-old son and heard a noise downstairs, according to Sugarland police. When she went to check on the noise, she saw a man trying to get into her home through a window, police said. The woman fired a gun once, hitting the suspect in the chest. He's been identified as 21-year-old Santana Hudson. He has a warrant out for his arrest with the Houston Police Department for burglary of a vehicle in 2018. He ran away from the home and left a trail of blood before officers were able to find him in a neighbor's yard. Hudson was transported to a hospital where he was listed as stable. The woman and child inside the home were not hurt. Neighbors don't blame the woman for what she did. I would have done the same thing. Absolutely, Brittany Spivey said. Just make sure I keep my guns loaded. Not much else you can do, Roger Clayton said. And, well, maybe that's all you have to do, right?
A little tip there to somebody wanting to commit a crime. Don't leave a blood trail for the police to track you with.
Well, yeah, that usually helps.
Did you hear about...
I was gonna say one shot and managed to hit him in the chest. Sounds like she's been practicing. Good for her.
No kidding.
The same thing happened when some guys took a medium or heavy duty truck and rammed it into an ATM mounted in the wall on the outside of the bank and broke it free from the wall. And then they hooked a chain to it and drug it back to their place with this truck. Well, when they rammed it, they used the front of the truck and smashed the radiator. And the police literally followed the trail of antifreeze all the way back to where they were trying to cut this ATM open. It's the same thing.
Dumbasses. Guy that comments asked, would you be intimate with Pelosi to repeal the Hughes Amendment? I don't know if I could take that big a hit for the team. I'm sorry, guys. Don't know.
If you put down a fifth first, you probably could.
No. There ain't enough. There ain't enough machine guns or whiskey in the world to get me to take that kind of hit for the team.
I was gonna say, let's nominate Yankee Marshall for taking that hit for us.
I don't think he would on principle.
Uh,
Next up, from WXXV25.com, investigation underway after homeowner shoots, kills armed intruder Sunday evening in Moss Point. Moss Point, Mississippi. Police are investigating after a homeowner shot and killed an armed intruder Sunday evening in Moss Point. Police say they received a call at around 6:30 p.m. Sunday, January 24th, reporting shots fired in the Mill Avenue area of East Moss Point. Officers responded to the 911 calls and after arriving, found a man lying in the roadway. The male victim appeared to have been shot and was pronounced dead on scene. Police Chief Brandon Ashley says the deceased victim and another man had attempted to carry out an armed home invasion of a residence in the area. The two men approached the door of their target residence and encountered the homeowner. At least one of the two men fired a gun multiple times at the homeowner, striking him at least once. The homeowner returned fire, striking at least one of the two intruders. That intruder was fatally wounded and collapsed in the roadway. The homeowner was treated and released from the hospital for his gunshot wounds. The two suspects have yet to be identified. Authorities say the case will be presented to the next grand jury for review. Well, hopefully the homeowner is found to be exonerated of that, because it sounds to me as if he kind of did the world a favor. Next up, from KHOU.com, dad shot his daughter's ex after the man followed her despite restraining order, police say. But don't restraining orders stop criminals? No charges have been announced as the investigation continues. A man with a restraining order against him was shot during an altercation outside his ex-girlfriend's family home late Wednesday, police said. The shooting happened in Houston's South Side before 11 p.m. Police said a woman saw her ex-boyfriend following her, so he drove her to her parents' home. When she pulled to the driveway, the ex allegedly blocked her in. The woman's father came outside with a pistol and said the boyfriend made a threatening move, so he opened fire on him. The ex was shot at least once and then got back in his vehicle and sped away from the scene, calling for an ambulance at airport in Cullen. He was then taken to the hospital with a wound to his hip. No names have been released and no charges have been filed as of early Thursday, but police said the man who was shot could face charges for violating a restraining order. Good. Play stupid games, one should win stupid prizes, and I think that that was pretty damn stupid. And last but most certainly not least is this piece from, what's this from? The Kerrville Daily Times. When's this from? What date? What date? Does it have a date? From, well, I'm not sure. It was in the last day or so, anyhow. A local ex-con accused of stabbing another man was detained at gunpoint by a concealed handgun license holder before being arrested for the 29th time in Kerr County on suspicion of aggravated assault. Police arrested Patrick Joseph Patton on Friday night shortly after the incident in which Patton allegedly had an argument at the subway on Sidney Baker Street with Christopher Saldana before stabbing him. Saldana was in stable condition at a San Antonio hospital, according to police. Patton was in the county jail as of Saturday morning, and his bond didn't appear to have been set. Patton has been in and out of the county jail since 2006, and since 2005 has been convicted of harassment of a public servant, assault on a public servant twice, graffiti, failure to identify, resisting arrest 3 times, stealing a vehicle, theft by check twice, evading arrest, furnishing alcohol to a minor, check forgery, burglary of a vehicle, criminal mischief, and a misdemeanor marijuana possession, according to court records. He has 3 pending misdemeanor charges from January 2020, marijuana possession less than 2 ounces, criminal trespassing, and resisting arrest, search, or transport. Patton was sentenced to 5 years in prison in 2014 for leading police on a vehicle chase and possession of methamphetamine. He was in prison from 2009 to 2013 for kicking and shoving a Kerr County Sheriff's deputy, headbutting a Kerrville police officer, and spitting on another KPD officer. Patton also was in state jail for 10 months in 2006-2007 for forgery and stealing a vehicle. He was in frequent fights in prison and was relocated 3 times to different units. During a court-ordered psychological evaluation a few years ago, Patton was diagnosed with disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, anxiety disorder, polysubstance use disorder, and mild neurocognitive disorder, including short-term memory impairment and auditory hallucinations stemming from traumatic brain injury. The Kerrville Police Department issued the following press release on Saturday. And then it talks into it. Let's see. The Kerrville, on Friday, January 15, 2021, at about 8:15 p.m., officers responded to subway located at 207 Sidney Baker South, Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, for a physical altercation. The caller advised that one of the individuals involved was in possession of a knife. Upon arrival, officers learned that Patrick Patton and Christopher Saldana had been involved in a physical altercation inside the restaurant. Most of the patrons fled the scene when the altercation ensued. One citizen stayed on scene and tried to break up the altercation. While breaking up the altercation, Patton brandished a knife and began to stab Saldana. When the citizen, a concealed carry holder, observed the knife, he retreated to his vehicle to obtain a pistol. The citizen then came back into the restaurant and kept Patton at gunpoint until officers arrived on scene. Saldana was stabbed at least 3 times and was flown to University Hospital. Saldana's injuries do not appear to be life-threatening. Patton was arrested for aggravated assault, a first-degree felony. The Kerrville Police Department would like to thank the citizen for his heroic actions to stop the assault. So there you have it, folks. Despite what some would have you believe, people use firearms in self-defense all the time. And on that note, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. I want to thank everybody for coming by. I want to thank Gunpowder Beauty for coming by and being part of the conversation tonight. She had to dip out early, but she's always welcome back anytime she wishes. That's why I send the invite. Speaking of always welcome back, Squib, where can people find you? What would you like to leave us with? What food for thought would you like to provide for us tonight?
Check out Caliber Corner tomorrow, or really today, at 9 a.m. Eastern, the only time zone that matters, on the Travis P11 channel. Or if you don't feel like getting up in 7 hours, just watch it on playback. I think he's discussing the 22 long rifle.
There you go, folks. Check it out. Speaking of check it out, check out Roll Call 219. Ro, where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, man, you can find me on Instagram at the same handle. You can find me on Twitter on the same handle. And then over on YouTube, you can find me there as well. I got a little bit of stuff on Gunstreamer. I haven't been on that thing forever. Kind of forgot about them there for a minute.
Yeah, me too.
I got quite a few new videos up. If you want to go check some stuff out, if you're interested in a little bit of hunting and messing around like that. Also, tons of gun-related stuff, politic and stuff. All that stuff is over there on the channel, so go through. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you want to, hit the bell for more notifications on my channel. And I'd greatly appreciate it. So thanks for having me, Budget. I love the show.
Hey, man. I'm glad to have you with us anytime you choose to be. Speaking of the same, Pickle, anything you'd like to leave us with?
I'll second on Squib's suggestion, but everyone checking out Caliber Corner, at 9 a.m. Eastern. You can find my stuff, YouTube, Instagram, MeWe. I've got stuff, over on Gab. I've kind of been playing around with multiple platforms. I still have a poll up on my Patreon, still going for a little while. I know not everyone uses that. I apologize. I tried to figure out how to put it on YouTube and couldn't figure it out. But that's for about, if people think I should go for getting patches made for the channel. And just I want to finish with, saying thank you for the invite, Budget. I, always enjoy being here.
And I always enjoy having you.
You can find Calaveras 32 Special on guntube.org as well.
That's very true. Thank you, Squib. I forgot that one.
And last but most certainly not least, I would like to say thank you to all of you out there in the chat who've been here, particularly those of you who are, gluttons enough for punishment to stick around through thick and thin to the very end. I can't begin to tell you how much that means to me. You guys are why I do this, and thank you so much. As always, I'd like to tell you, particularly with some of the egregious legislation that we have coming, not just at our federal level, but at our local and state levels as well, we need to constantly be on our Congress critters and elected representatives to let them know what we think. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, bicycle messengers, semaphore, heliograph, anything we have to do to let them know what we think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll see you guys on the next one.